So how do you approach problem solving and troubleshooting? Now, obviously, you've solved some problems yourself. You have a patent for something that's going to solve a lot of problems for some people out there. But outside of that, how do you approach the problem solving process when you're faced with a technical issue that maybe you've not run into?
I'll start with what I do when a more common thing is I have a customer calling with a thermal spray problem. The coating not sticking, or it doesn't have the right mechanical properties. It doesn't have the right porosity. Something wrong with that. I always start back with the basics. The first question I ask is, did it work before? And yeah, well, sure, it used to work. Okay, so the simple question is, what changed? It comes back to, is there proper documentation of what the parameters were when you first started doing it and everything worked? Do we have the right voltages, the right powers, the right spray distances, the speeds? We're using the same materials in the same form, manufactured the same way. It's just those series of questions. The best experts come in and start asking questions and keep asking questions. One thing I've also learned is when I ask a question and I say, is the material okay? Well, sure, the material is okay. Well, that's not good enough at that point. Well, how do you know the material's okay? Well, because we checked it. Great. What did you check? It's usually 5 or 6 levels of questions to get down to the root thing. And it's like, well, we looked at the label. Okay, so did you test the material? Well, no. All right, let's go test the material. Is there a spec? So it's those kinds of things, is drilling in to get down to the truth and asking enough questions to get the answers to help you solve the problem. Most of the time, thermal spray problems, again, with something that's already established, is simply something that's changed in the process and just figuring out what changed. And many, many times it's just something that's casual that wasn't given much thought. It wasn't like it was intentionally, how can we mess up this process? Starting with a new problem or starting with something that hasn't been done before, I always start with, again, what's the end in mind? What do we want this to do when it's all finished? When we're all done and we go home, what's the end result that we're looking for? Then we start working backwards from that, is how do we get that? Again, if you're looking at a coating property, what are the properties you want of the coating? What do you want that coating to do when we're all finished? And what's the measurements of that? How do we know when we've reached that and attained what you're looking for? And then we back into what's the right material to use for that? What's the right equipment? And then develop the process around that.
Yeah, that doesn't seem like a job where you can go to YouTube and try to figure out, you get a problem. It seems like a lot of jobs nowadays, everybody's like, okay, I'm just going to go to YouTube and figure out the solution. This is definitely not one of those processes.
No, and sometimes YouTube confuses people. A lot of information on YouTube, and there's some interesting videos there, but it's getting back to the fundamentals. If you understand the fundamentals of the coatings and the processes to develop those coatings, that's the key. So far, I haven't found any YouTube videos that go through that basic process of teaching all that. If you'd like to have any more information about the thermal spray or want clarity on the thermal spray or our patented technology in the pivot arc, give us a call at 724-229-5791 or email me at bob@thermalspraydepot.com.